Thakur Prabhupada Maharaja ki
Jai.
Nitya Lila Pravishta Paramhansa Babaji Srila Gorkishwardas Babaji Maharaja ki
Jai.
Nitya Lila Pravishta Saptam Goswami Sachidananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Maharaja ki
Jai.
Nitya Lila Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaja ki
Jai.
Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki
Jai.
Shri Rup Sri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sadhu Goswami Prabhu ki
Jai.
Shri Surup Damodar Roy Ramanandari Gaur Parishara Vrinda ki
Jai.
Brahmacharya Sura Haridas Thakur ki
Yes.
Prem Sri Geho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa 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 Dandwara Savanatmakam Shri Brajamanda Vedama ki
Jai.
Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Shyama Kunda Jamuna Ganga Tulasi Bhakti Devi ki
Jai.
Shri Jagannath Baldeva Subhadra Surushan Chakra Joki
Jai.
Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki
Jai.
Sarva Vigna Vinasana Nishinga Bhagavan ki
Jai.
Bhakta Pravar Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki Charo Sampradaya Charya ki
Jai.
Kalamat Sri Chaitanya Mata ki
Jai.
Sri Sri Radha Govinda Mahaprabhu Temple in Rajpur ki
Jai.
Sri Harinam Prabhu ki
Jai.
Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki
Jai.
Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Go Premanande
Haribo.
Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Tirobhava ki
Jai.
Srila Gadadhar Pandit Tirobhava ki
Jai.
Go Premanande
Haribo.
So today is the disappearance day of Sri Gadadhar Pandit and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So, Gadadhar Pandit, I don't know which one to talk about first. I guess I'll talk about Gadadhar Pandit first. So, of course, we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came internally, primarily. His primary reason for coming was to understand three things. He came to understand the love of Srimati Radhika had for him. What was the particular sweetness in him that she alone could see and no one else could see? And what was the ecstasy that she tasted when she made love with him? These three things he came to understand in Srimati Radhika. It's the greatest love story. Krishna comes to understand the feminine goddess, his heart, his soul. That's what Radharani is. So some training is required. Krishna comes as Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radharani, but the mood has to be cultivated. So who's cultivating the mood? Who's helping him? Who's helping him to cultivate this mood? But Radharani herself in the form of Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit, he comes to this world in a very high-class Brahmin family in Navadvip. Navadvip at that time was a center for learning and knowledge. And it was understood that from his birth, Gadadhar Pandit never enjoyed any sense gratification. In other words, he was not attached attached to his body on any level. He never tried to enjoy his senses for his own personal pleasure. He was always absorbed in his mood as Srimati Radhika, and Srimati Radhika's main purpose is to give pleasure to Krishna. So Gadadhar Pandit was always thinking about how to give pleasure to Krishna. He had no other thought. He was very strict in his behavior, very sense-controlled. And Mahaprabhu used to tease him when they were children. And so Gadadhar Pandit always avoided him because he was being teased. He loved him, but he was avoiding him, the teasing. And of course, when Mahaprabhu came back from Gaya, and he was in the mood of a Vaishnava, well then Gadadhar became very attached to being with Mahaprabhu. Srila Gurudev talks about how Gadadhar Pandit used to sit or stand behind the Vyasasana in Srivas Thakur's house. When Mahaprabhu would give lectures, when he'd give talks, he would quote different verses from the Bhagavatam that Radharani had spoken. And then Srila Gurudev talks about how Gadadhar from behind the Vyasasana would say, no, that's not the mood I spoke in. Spoken like this. And he would recite that verse from the Bhagavatam in the particular mood. And then Mahaprabhu would re-recite it in the correct mood. So he was being trained to understand the mood of Srimati Radhika. That she's feeling. What is her mood in the ecstasy that she feels for me, that she gets when she's having her loving affairs with me? What are these things? I want to know. So those moods could only be expressed to him from Srimati Radhika herself. And this was what Sri Gadadhar Pandit's main mission was, to express these moods of Srimati Radhika to Mahaprabhu. Not only in Navadvip at Srivasangam, but later on in Jagannath Puri, we read the story about how Gadadhar Pandit receives the deity of Tota Gopinath from Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu was sitting on the beach with Gadadhar, and he started making his hand go in a circle in the sand. And as he was doing that, he was displacing sand, and the sand was being displaced, and then suddenly a crown peeked up from the sand, and gradually more and then the devotees came and they moved all the sand, and that deity of Tota Gopinath appeared. And Mahaprabhu told Gadadhar Pandit, he said, "You worship me in this form." So that's how that, Tota means garden. That temple had many gardens around it. Very beautiful. And he used to worship the deity of Tota Gopinath in that temple during the day. So, Gadadhar, in that garden there was one platform. Mandap, they call it, mandap. And on that platform, Gadadhar Pandit would sit and he would recite the Srimad Bhagavatam every morning. There's a famous painting that Maharaj Pratap Rudra commissioned from one artist of him offering obeisances in front of Gadadhar Pandit and Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda during the time of Ratha Yatra, when all the devotees were there. They would go in the morning to hear Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit. So every morning Mahaprabhu would hear Gadadhar Pandit recite Srimad Bhagavatam. And while he was listening to Gadadhar Pandit recite Srimad Bhagavatam, he was receiving the moods of Mahaprabhu, of Radharani. He was tasting them, and he was experiencing what is the mood of Radharani when she speaks in different ways. And experiencing these moods, at night, Mahaprabhu would go to Gambhira, in Gambhira where he lived, and that's when Swarup Damodar, who was Lalita, and Roy Ramanand, who was Vishaka, would nourish the bhavs that he received in the morning from Gadadhar Pandit, and sing songs of Vidyapati, Chandidas, and Jayadev Goswami for him to understand the moods of Srimati Radhika when she was being when she was in her loving devotions to Krishna. So in this way, all these ecstasies were nourished in Mahaprabhu through the agency of Gadadhar Pandit. He was very, very strict, very, very careful about everything. And Mukunda, who was a great bhajan kirtan person, took Gadadhar Pandit once to meet with Pandarik Vidyanidhi. He told Gadadhar, I'm going to take you today to meet a very exalted devotee. So Gadadhar was very excited, oh, I want to meet this devotee. But you got to remember, Gadadhar never enjoyed even 1 second of sense gratification in his life. Therefore, he was very renounced, very detached from material pleasures. So he assumed that he's going to see a great devotee, that this person would also be renounced from material pleasure. So he goes to see Pandarik Vidyanidhi, and Mukunda takes him to this palace, and he's thinking, a great devotee lives in this palace. So he brings Gadadhar Pandit into the palace to see Pandarik Vidyanidhi, and Pandarik Vidyanidhi is sitting on a very beautiful silk-lined asana with big pillows, and he has women on either side of him with fans fanning him, and he has tables with gold pots, gold bowls of fruits and sweets and beautiful juices and things of that kind, and a hookah. A hookah. So Gadadhar is looking at this, and he's thinking, this man is dressed in silk, he's sitting on silk, he has women waiting on him, feeding him fruit and juice and a hookah and all these things, and he's supposed to be a great devotee? I don't understand. Thinking. So then Mukunda began to sing the verse from the 10th canto, the whole bhakti. This is bhakti means the putana, the witch putana. And he's singing this song to her, to him, about her. That Putana, she was actually in her previous life the daughter of Bali Maharaj. And she was there when Vamandev came. So when she saw this beautiful dwarf boy, Brahmin boy, so effulgent, so handsome, so gorgeous, she was thinking, oh, what a beautiful Brahmin boy. I wish I could be so fortunate to feed breast milk to this beautiful child. So her first impression of the Lord was, I want to be a mother to the Lord and feed my breast milk to the Lord. The first impression. Then Vaman took everything from Bali and left him and his daughter destitute. So she became very angry. And she thought, when I feed breast milk to this child, I'll put poison on my nipple so that he should be poisoned. Jai Sri Radha Govinda Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhagavaat Maharaja. Jai. So, she takes birth as Putana, and then as Putana, she comes to see Krishna, baby Krishna, and she's got poison on her nipple. Tries to poison him. And Krishna, he sucks out the life air of Putana. But this verse, a whole bhakti, is saying that how wonderful is Krishna? A whole means wonderful. How wonderful is Krishna? That he disregarded the poison on the breast. And all he saw in her, the move that he saw in her is, you're my mother. And so he elevates her to go directly to the spiritual world to become a mother in Vatsalya Bhav in Goloka. When she leaves her body, she gets this position in Goloka as a nurse that she can breastfeed Krishna in Goloka. How merciful! So when he starts to sing this, then what happened? For his devotee. And so when he goes into ecstasy, he can't control himself. He starts tearing off his clothes, his silk clothes and his gold buttons, and pulling them off. He starts flailing and he's knocking over the bowls of fruit and juice and the hookah and everything on the floor, and then he falls off the asana onto the floor, and he's rolling from side to side and roaring and belching and shaking and trembling and crying, and Gadadhar is looking at this. Oh, Hasta Sattvika Bhav. He's displaying the 8 symptoms of ecstasy upon hearing the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. He is a great devotee. And I have committed an offense by thinking ill of him. And so because of this offense, I now have to surrender to him and take initiation. And so he becomes initiated by Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi, who in Krishna Leela is Rishabhanu, the father of Radharani. So Gadadhar, Radharani, gets initiated by her father, Rishabhanananda. So like this. Very, very deep teaching. What Gadadhar is teaching, that I committed an offense by mind. You know, there's 3 offenses. Bhrigu Rishi, he committed the 3 offenses. He went before Lord Shiva, and when he went before Lord Shiva, he neglected him, just mentally ignored him. And by ignoring him mentally, then Lord Shiva was so angry, he wanted to kill him. So this is mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance response to being offended mentally. And then when he went before Brahma, then he spoke first mind, then words. He spoke something that offended Brahma, and Brahma shouted at him angrily. So this is mode of passion. And then he went to Lord Vishnu, and he went and he placed his foot on the chest of Lord Vishnu, kicking him. And Lord Vishnu's response was, I hope that my chest was not too hard to hurt your lotus feet, O Brahma. So this is a mode of goodness response. There's no anger, no violence, forgiveness. One forgives. So, very, very, Gadadhar Pandit is teaching us that even for a mental offense, one has to surrender to the person that he's offended and accept instruction. A very, very important teaching Gadadhar is giving us. So Gadadhar Pandit, a very important figure in the Gaur Leela. There are other pastimes with him. I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the great teachings of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which I posted on my Facebook page. Oops. Okay. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day. Some important quotes by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I want to read these to you because he gave such important teachings. The 11th obstacle of the Vaishnavas is sectarianism. In the Krishna Samhita, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gives information about the different pastimes of Krishna and which obstacle that the pastime represents. And Krishna killed different demons, and each demon that he kills represents a different obstacle on the path of bhakti. So here he's talking about the 11th obstacle of the Vaishnavas is sectarianism, which takes the shape of the forest fire. And we know the story about how the cows and cowherd boys get caught in the vines on the ground in the forest, the Munjavan forest. And then the demon comes and starts the forest fire, and then Krishna comes and swallows that fire. But due to sectarianism, a person cannot accept anyone outside their own group as a Vaishnava. And as a result, they face many obstacles in finding a guru and associating with devotees. Therefore, extinguishing the forest fire is the most important pastime. In Srila Prabhupada, in Nectar of Devotion, in the, I think it's the 19th chapter, he says that there are many societies of pure devotees. And if anyone associates with any one of those societies of pure devotees, even just briefly, can make advancement in their spiritual life. So here we see that Srila Prabhupada follows in this path of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also talks about it in the Jaiva Dharma in chapter 11. Those who become sectarian by obstinately locking themselves into dogmatic cults are soon diverted from lofty idealism, munificence, and liberality. They deride and rail at anyone who does not follow their particular methodology in religious practice. This is a serious aberration on their part. Here again, talking about sectarianism and the problem that it causes. Another excerpt from the Krishna Samhita about sectarianism. Sectarianism is a natural byproduct of the absolute truth. When acharyas first ascertain and instruct the truth, it is not polluted with sectarianism. Because the original teaching of the acharyas is about Advaita Paratattva, the one non-dual substance, the one non-dual substance which is seen in three ways, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So there's no sectarianism in this. But the rules and regulations received through disciplic succession regarding the goal and the method of achieving it are changed in due course of time according to the mentality and locale of the people. A rule that is followed by one society is not necessarily accepted in another society. When Mahaprabhu went to the Madhva Acharyas in Udupi and he heard their explanation of the tattva, Siddhanta that they gave, he showed them the defect in seeing things in that perspective. And the Tattvavadis in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that they tell Mahaprabhu that, yes, what you're saying about Achinta Beta Beta Tattva is true. What you're teaching us about the defect that we have in our vision is correct. But still, we follow our party line. We follow our party line. We don't deviate from that. So this is what he's saying here. That is why one community is different from another. As a community gradually develops more respect for its own standards, it develops hatred toward other communities and considers their standards inferior. These sectarian symptoms, as seen in all countries since time immemorial. This is prominent amongst neophytes and found to some extent amongst Madhyamadakaris. But amongst Uttamadakaris, however, there is no trace of sectarianism. If we look, we have the third canto here. Third canto Bhagavatam. No? Third canto, 29th chapter. So we see very, very important instructions Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving about this sectarianism. Now, in Srimad Bhagavatam, he says at the end of this section here, he says that the sectarian symptoms are seen in all countries since time immemorial. This is prominent amongst neophytes and found to some extent amongst Madhyamadakaris. But amongst Uttamadakaris it isn't found. So now we see in this verse, in the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 29th chapter, verse number 8. Abhishandhaya yohim sam dambam matsaryam evava samrambi vinadrik bhavam mai kuryat satamasa. Devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of darkness. One who approaches the Supreme Lord to render devotional service, but who is proud of his personality, envious of others, or vengeful, is in the mode of anger. He thinks that he is the best devotee. Devotional service executed in this way is not pure. It is mixed and of the lowest grade, tamasa. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur advises that a Vaishnava who is not of good character should be avoided. A Vaishnava is one who has taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life, but if one is not pure and still has motives, then he is not a Vaishnava of the first order of good character. One may offer his respects to such a Vaishnava because he has accepted the Supreme Lord as the ultimate goal of life, but one should not keep company with a Vaishnava who is in the mode of ignorance. So here Prabhupada lays it out pretty clearly in the same mood as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that we should take the association of higher Vaishnavas, not Vaishnavas who are in this mood. We should always offer respect to everyone who has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Person. We offer respect to everybody, every living being. But association, that's different. So then he talks about the next verse talks about those who are in Rajagun. Vishayana Vishandaya Yasha Aishvaryam Evava Archadao Archayed Yomam Pritak Bhava Maharaja. The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. Our deities are bigger than your deities. Our temple has more people coming to it than your temple. We have more money. Therefore, we're better. Seeing, this is a person in Rajaguna. Person in Rajaguna. The word separatist must be understood carefully. The Sanskrit words in this connection are Binadrik and Pritak Bhava. The previous verse, 8th verse, it says Binadrik. And here it says Pritak Bhava. A separatist is one who sees his interest as separate from the Supreme Lord. Mixed devotees, or devotees in the mode of passion and ignorance, think that the interest of the Supreme Lord is in supplying the orders of the devotee. Krishna should give us money, should give us a big building, should give us big deities. Krishna should give us this and that. The interest of such devotees is to draw from the Lord as much as possible for what? For their personal sense gratification. This is the separatist mentality. Actually, pure devotion is explained in the previous chapter. The mind of the Supreme Lord and the mind of the devotee should be dovetailed. A devotee should not wish anything but to execute the desire of the Supreme. That is oneness. When the devotee has an interest or will different from the interest of the Supreme Lord, his mentality is that of a separatist. We see that in Prabhupada when he arrives in Boston Harbor and he looks out and he writes this prayer. He says, all these people are deeply sunk in the modes of passion and ignorance. Why have you brought me here? You must have some reason. You must have some. I may not be seeing it now, but you must have some reason. Therefore, I now become a puppet in your hands. You make me dance as you like. This is helplessness. This is helplessness. This is accepting, becoming one with the Lord in His purpose. Even if you don't see what the purpose is. This is the beauty. When the so-called devotee desires material enjoyment without reference to the interest of the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become famous or opulent by utilizing the mercy or grace of the Supreme Lord, he's in the mode of passion. So this is the next book. Then it talks about the devotee in the mode of goodness. Karmani haram odishya parasmin vatararpanam yajed yatsav yashtavyam itiva pritak bhava sasatvika. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. So here the devotee understands that according to my position, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, or Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, whatever position I'm in, I'm offering the fruit of my work to Krishna. So he understands that he has to offer the fruit of his work. But if there's some desire, when such activities are performed and the results are offered to the Supreme, they're called karmapanam, duties performed for the satisfaction of the Lord. If there's any inebriety or fault, it is atoned for by this offering process. But if this offering process is in the mode of goodness rather than in pure devotion, then the interest is different. So what is the difference between goodness and pure devotion? The difference between goodness and pure devotion is, in goodness, you perform the activity and then you offer it. But in pure devotion, you offer yourself first. First, you surrender to Krishna, and you offer yourself. Then whatever you do is pure devotion. But this is, Jiva Goswami talks about this, Sridhar Maharaj talks about it in his book about surrender. What is that book he wrote? Prapanam Jivanam Rita? Huh?
Yeah.
And he wrote in the introduction, he talks about this, and Gurudev talks about it in the Roy Ramnam Samvad, in the chapter, the verse, Tadvidi Yat Karoshi Yadashnosi, in that verse he talked about. He talks about how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, simply offering your daily eating and sleeping activities to the Lord is not pure devotion. Not that you know, it's mode of goodness, because you're offering everything to Krishna, but you're not offering yourself first. You're offering everything to Krishna because you want to enjoy it. Yes, I want all these nice things, so I'm offering them to Krishna. So, in pure devotion, the manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of Ganges flows naturally towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows toward the Supreme Lord. So here, in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers, teaching, we're seeing how he's explaining that the sectarian symptoms are seen in all countries since time immemorial. This is prominent amongst neophytes and found to some extent amongst Madhyamadhikaris. But amongst the Uttamadhikaris, however, there is no trace of sectarianism. They see the original thing. And we see that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has this very broad vision, very, very broad vision of devotional service and Sankirtan. In the Sajjanatoshini in 1885, he wrote, very soon the unparalleled path of Harinam Sankirtan will be propagated all over the world. Already we are seeing the symptoms, hearing the first strains of the Sankirtan movement in the West, with the Salvation Army marching band who sing the names of God while playing cymbals and drums. But this is his vision. He sees even Salvation Army singing hymns in the street with cymbals and drums as being part of the Sankirtan movement. Very, very broad vision, very embracing, very embracing. So he writes many predictions. He says, the Dharma preached by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is universal, not exclusive. The principle of Kirtan as the future church of the world invites all classes of men without distinction of caste or clan to the highest cultivation of the spirit. The church, this church, it appears, will spread worldwide and replace all sectarian churches, which exclude outsiders from the precincts of a mosque, church, or temple. And here he has this vision of creating a worldwide religion of Sankirtan. This is his vision. That was written in the Life and Precepts of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was the book that he sent to McGill University. Then he writes, Lord Chaitanya did not invent himself to liberate only a few men of India. Rather, his main objective was to emancipate all living entities of all countries throughout the entire universe and preach the eternal religion. Lord Chaitanya says in the Chaitanya Bhagavaat In every town, country, and village my name will be sung. There is no doubt that this unquestionable order will come to pass. Oh, for that day when the fortunate English, French, Russian, German, and American people will take up banners, mridungas, and kartals and raise kirtan through their streets and towns. Oh, when will that day come? Oh, for the day when the fair-skinned men from their side will raise up the chanting of Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan Ki Jai, and join with the Bengali devotees. When will that day be? On such a day they will say, our dear brothers, we have taken shelter of the ocean of Lord Chaitanya's love. Kindly embrace us. That day will witness the holy transcendental ecstasy of the Vaishnava Dharma to be the only Dharma, and all sects and religions will flow like rivers into the ocean of Vaishnavism. Oh, when will that day come? And in another place, Bhaktivinoda Thakur repeats the same prediction a little differently. Oh, when will that day come when pure and transcendental Vaishnava praying will be the only religion of all souls, and all tiny sectarian religions will meet in the unlimited and universal religion of Vaishnavism as rivers merge into the great ocean? Or when will that day come? This is again from Sajjanatoshi. And then he makes another prediction. He talks about, as he talked earlier about sectarianism, and how over the years the different lineages create rules and regulations which exclude other people and create hatred between groups. So now in Sajjanatoshini he talks about this. He says, gradually, when the offensive portions of the established religions are destroyed, there will be no more differences in the bhajan performed by various sampradayas or any quarrel between them. Then as brothers, the people of all varnas, castes, and countries will spontaneously chant the holy names of the Supreme Lord together. At that time, no one will hate anyone or consider others dog-eaters, nor will anyone be overwhelmed by the pride of high birth. The living entities will not forget the principle of natural brotherhood. So some people, I've had arguments with some of my godbrothers who've actually said, I don't think that this is important, that we should do this. We should maintain our own separate interest as ISKCON or Gaudiya Math or whatever. This is, the ignorance. This is devotional service in the mode of ignorance that they can't understand.
How could they think that?
How could they think that? Because they're influenced by the mode of ignorance and passion. And
is that like an attachment or something?
Yeah, they're influenced by the mode of ignorance and passion. They're attached to their particular sectarian view. And they don't understand the broad universal vision of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada wrote an article once called Thakur Bhakti Vinod. And he made the following statement about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prophecies on universal spiritual unity. Thakur Bhakti Vinod has predicted the consummation of religious unity of the world by the appearance of the only universal church which bears the eternal designation of the Brahma Sampradaya. And here you note that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is not even talking about Gaudiya Math. He talks about the Brahma Sampradaya. Not even Brahma Madhva or Brahma Madhva Gaudiya. He talks about the Brahma Sampradaya, the one universal eternal designation, the one universal church, the Brahma Sampradaya, because Brahma is the first. Lord Brahma is the first. He has given mankind the blessed assurance that all theistic churches will shortly merge in the one eternal spiritual community by the grace of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya. The spiritual community is not circumscribed by the conditions of time and space, race and nationality. Mankind had been looking forward to this far-off divine event through the long ages. Thakur Bhaktivinoda has made the conception available in its practicable spiritual form to the open-minded empiricist who is prepared to undergo the process of enlightenment. The keystone of the arch has been laid. You know, when you have an arch, it builds up from two sides, and then in the middle they have to put a keystone to connect the two sides so that they don't fall. The keystone of the arch has been laid, which will afford the needed shelter to all awakened animation under its ample encircling arms. Those who would thoughtlessly allow their hollow pride of race, pseudo-knowledge, or pseudo-virtue to stand in the way of this long-hoped-for consummation would have to thank only themselves for not being incorporated in the spiritual society of all pure souls. Now, how clear does this get? Now, these are the teachings of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on this subject. And I would encourage everyone to read these carefully and to embrace their meaning, because this is the future. This is our future. Our future is in this.
Maharaj?
Yes.
So on the one hand, there's the danger of sectarianism. But on the other hand, what's got to be really focused on in these teachings is that the unifying principle is not an indiscriminating liberalism, which is very prominent today. Now, you think this is being used to say how all groups, everything they think, everything they do is all great, we're all one.
No, I didn't say that.
No, I'm not saying this. I'm not beginning to say that you're saying it. Saying that is the other danger that's coming. It's a kind of Sahaji liberalism.
No, what he's saying is he sees some kernel of Mahaprabhu's mission everywhere, even in this. The point is not to. You have to. It's simultaneously. We have to be accommodating and embrace the shred or the light or the seed of Mahaprabhu's mission in every religious group that we see. The love, we have to look for the love. The way when Bhaktivinoda Thakur went to deliver the lecture called the Bhagavaat in Calcutta to a group of British expatriates who were living in Calcutta, he talked about the preeminently beautiful teachings of love by Lord Jesus Christ, which were far superior to the teachings of wrath. He pulled out the important thing. He emphasized the love, to the point where he said that although they talk about hell in the Bhagavatam, those are allegories, analogies. It's not real. Because he wanted to emphasize that the important thing was not condemning everybody to hell because of some rule that you didn't follow. The important thing is to embrace everybody with spiritual love. And that the teaching of love is more important than the teaching of hell and hate. So, you know, we look for that love. Where is that love? Where is that love? We see it in the Salvation Army band. We see it in people's hymns in church. We see it everywhere. That love is there to some degree, to some percentage. That love is there. We look for that love everywhere, okay? And we try to encourage and nourish that love so that it will grow into the broadest, most beautiful flower of Vaishnavism. Because in Vaishnavism, then we get the true love, the real love, which is devoid of sense gratification and is offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for His pleasure. Just as we talked about before, Gadadhar Pandit never enjoyed any sense gratification in his whole life because he's Radharani. And Radharani's sole purpose is to give pleasure to Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means giving pleasure to Krishna. So the first thing you offer is yourself. Goptripta Varnam. Jiva Goswami talks about this principle of Goptripta Varnam, of offering yourself to Krishna. It's one of the 6 symptoms of surrender. You offer yourself first to Krishna. Then whatever you do is already offered. It's not that you do the act and then you offer the fruit. No, you offer you. This is pure devotion. This is the process. Yeah.
I have a question. I think it's in Antardui. There's a deity of Garai Gauranga.
Yeah.
Can you tell how that deity manifests and who, like the story behind that deity?
You mean at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's place?
I believe so. Yeah. Or is it?
I don't remember the story. I just know that Bhaktivinoda Thakur worshipped Gadadhar and Mahaprabhu, not Nityananda and Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, the other side.
He worshipped Gadadhar and Mahaprabhu. And he did so because that was his particular mood.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an example of this sectarian view. Somebody wrote an article, one of my sannyasi godbrothers from another group. Here we see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur is worshipping Gaur Gadadhar, and the meaning of worshipping Gaur Gadadhar. This is the important thing. Instead of emphasizing this Rupanuga and following Rupa Goswami, we should see that our most recent Acharya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is teaching us the proper mood of worshipping Gaur Gadadhar. And I'm thinking, has he lost his mind?
Instead of?
Yeah.
Separating?
Yeah, he was complaining about how the emphasis was on being Rupanuga. You know, and so I said, did he even read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mantra? Namo Bhaktivinodaya Sachidananda Namane Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Variety. Did he even read the mantra? So it's very important. And what he said is important also. Mm-hmm. We don't want to become mammy-pammy. We don't want to become ignorant. We want to look for the love and we want to look for God everywhere. But we don't want to dilute the pure principles of Vaishnavism. I placed some talks by Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev on Facebook where they were talking about not taking marijuana and other drugs and how this pollutes everything. Mm-hmm. And there was young people up there arguing. No, it enhances the kirtan experience. Hello? It doesn't enhance the kirtan. Being in the mode of ignorance does not enhance the kirtan experience. The kirtan experience is a transcendental experience. It has nothing to do with psychoactive drugs, which alter your brain chemicals. They don't understand the principle of how the soul is in the subtle body. And the consciousness emanates from the soul. This is 13th chapter, verse 34. Just like the sun is in one place in the universe, the sunshine emanates from the sun and is all over the universe. Similarly, the soul is in one place in the subtle body, in the body, and it emanates consciousness all over the body. So the consciousness is spiritual. It emanates from the soul. And it is the desires come into the consciousness just like sunshine comes in the atmosphere, so then pollution contaminates the sunshine. Similarly, the modes of material nature contaminate the consciousness. The sun never becomes contaminated, only the sunshine. Similarly, the soul never becomes contaminated. The consciousness becomes polluted by the modes of nature. And then desires arise, material desires, which are then placed in the subconscious mind, okay? In the dormant subconscious mind, and then in the active subconscious mind, and then in the active conscious mind. And when it comes to the active conscious mind, it descends by prana through the chakras into the physical body. And each chakra ends in a different endocrine gland, which have electrodes in them. And then those endocrine glands, the electrodes are activated by the prana, and then they produce brain chemicals. Now those brain chemicals can be altered by the food we eat or drugs that we take or whatever, because they're all balanced chemical things. But it doesn't have anything to do with the consciousness. It's only affecting the byproduct of the consciousness. The brain chemicals are the byproduct of the consciousness. They're not the consciousness itself. And so you think that you're altering your consciousness, but you're altering the byproduct of your consciousness, which is the brain chemicals. And this is the problem. And so they think, well, and they were actually writing this on my page. But it enhances the kirtan. It doesn't enhance your kirtan experience to have a psychoactive drug in your body. The kirtan experience is a transcendental spiritual experience. And this is the mammy-pammy stuff. This is the...
Can I do a little devil's advocacy here on this? It's like several considerations. One, it's completely true. If you take something pure, like water, and you add earth or anything, it's going to contaminate it.
Yeah.
Yes. But we're starting from a position where it's already contaminated.
Yeah.
So what's been observed in many different cultures is that there are certain drugs, medicines, taken medicinally, herbs, that they actually help break a constant sense of misidentification with something called reality, but it's just the regular conditioned illusion. So in India also...
They discussed this with Prabhupada when we were all taking LSD.
Didn't Prabhupada's father take... Isn't there that whole...
I'll explain to you.
Yeah.
They discussed this with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said the best that LSD can do is awaken you to the conception that you're not the physical or subtle body. That's the best it can do. It cannot give you an understanding of God.
No bhakti.
Yeah, can't get
There's no bhakti.
No bhakti. Yeah.
When Prabhupada's father was in the last days of his life and he was dying, he was in excruciating pain. And that's when Prabhupada gave him opium in order to ease his pain, because that was what they had at the time. Otherwise, it wasn't used for enhancing the kirtan experience. It was used because he was in, extraordinary pain. Srila Gurudev made the point to myself and Padmanabha Maharaj and Nemi Maharaj. He said, you should understand this. I remember this, it was on a walk in the Bay Area. He said, you should understand that by reading a book or listening to a tape, you get transcendental knowledge, which encourages you in your bhajan. He said, but you cannot get the moods of the inhabitants of Braj through a tape or a book. He said, that has to come from the heart of the Vaishnava.
Evil.
And Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes about this in an article called Pratishta Parivrajana. And in that article, he says that when you, he's talking about the prayer of Raghunath Das Goswami about the dancing, dog-eating prostitute of Pratishta. And,
Donkey urine drinking.
donkey urine
That's
is the
from
previous verse.
Radha
Taking bathing in the donkey urine of I think pride, but
Deceit.
deceit, yeah. Bathing in the donkey urine of deceit, and then the next verse is engaging with the dancing dog-eating prostitute of Pratishta. And he says, when he talks about Pratishta,
So heavy.
yeah, he says in that, in his commentary on the verse, he says, what can we learn from this verse of Raghunath Das Goswami? He says, what we can learn is that we cannot understand, we cannot get rid of Pratishta through reading scripture. We cannot get rid of Pratishta by discussing scripture with others. We cannot get rid of Pratishta by hearing scripture from those who are not in praying. And we cannot get rid of Pratishta by performing any kind of yoga exercise. He says, we can only get rid of Pratishta by associating with Vishuddha Vaishnavas and hearing Hari Katha from their lips. He said, gradually by that association, we become sadhutva, purified. We become qualified to receive the mercy of the Vishuddha Vaishnava. He said, and when the Vishuddha Vaishnava sees that we are at that place in our consciousness, that we are ready to receive that mercy, he says, at that point, he then sends a ray of prema from his heart to your heart and displaces the Pratishta. This happens at the juncture of Ashakti and Bhav. This is when that Pratishta, that false identification of the false ego identification with the body that comes about from the desires that the consciousness has placed in the subconscious mind, when all those are, that are feeding, those desires are feeding the false ego to identify with the physical body and create the physical body, that Pratishta, that identity, that I am this whatever, boy, girl, black, white, this, that, the other thing, when it's removed, then the spiritual form manifests. This is the dissolution of the subtle body. And the dissolution of the subtle body is talked about in the 25th chapter of the 3rd canto, this book right here, chapter 25, verse number 33. There it says, the process of bhakti dissolves the subtle body. The subtle body becomes dissolved, then we manifest our true spiritual identity. And that doesn't happen by anything except the association of the pure devotees who can transfer the moods of the inhabitants of Braj to our hearts. Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You're making the point, bhakti comes from bhakti.
Yeah.
That only from the pure devotee.
Yeah.
And what I'm realizing, listening, there's no question that something occurs when intoxicants are taken that's pleasurable. And that feeling of pleasurable makes it very difficult to hanker with desperation, helplessness for the association with pure devotee. It makes us complacent.
All sense gratification creates pleasure.
Yeah.
And the pressure that it creates is, to varying degrees, very difficult to extricate ourselves from. Intoxication gives us an illusion of the illusion. We're already in illusion, in Maya. And then we intoxicate ourselves and we become illusioned about the illusion. So that's a very difficult thing to let go of. But sex, of course, is the most difficult thing. That's the most binding knot. That's the knot which makes it impossible for us to let go.
Hriday Granthi.
Yes, Hriday Granthi. It makes it impossible for us to let go of the material body, because it's the pleasure that identifies most with the physical body, and it is the most envious act, because that act is only there for Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world. It is not for us. We're supposed to serve Radharani and arrange for her to receive that pleasure from Krishna. That's the purpose of our eternal existence. And then she broadcasts that pleasure to her manjaris, who then also experience it. So this is the process, but it's a very envious act, the desire for sex. And to give that up is not easy, because it's the most binding to the physical heart and the subtle body heart. So taking drugs is only an illusion of the illusion. And to think that you're gaining, they tried this, they discussed this with Prabhupada threadbare, about taking LSD and drugs and this and that. And he told them, there's nothing there. At best, you can understand you're not the body. I immediately figured that out when I got to the temple. I said, okay, LSD made me understand I wasn't the body, but it's not teaching me about God. Not teaching me about God. I'm going to learn about God from the Gita. I sat with the guy for an hour talking about the Bhagavad Gita, and I said, okay, that's it, I'm moving in. This is what I've been looking for. I want to learn about the Gita.
I think Lalita's got the quote. Loka told me you had a quote where Prabhupada said that after you come to this movement, now it will take about 300 lifetimes to actually get beyond sex.
Yeah, not easy.
300. Okay, here's the question, Raj, then. The really
How far away are we from Arti?
10 minutes.
Okay.
So, here we go. So everything depends on pure devotee. You get bhakti from a pure devotee, you're relieved from pratishtaha, any other problems by the pure devotee. Without that, it's all gyan. It's just conceptual understanding.
Right.
So Prabhupada's now left us in manifest form. Gurudev's left us. Srila Bharati Maharaj has left us.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Where do we go for this shelter? What's our attitude? I mean, I feel totally lost.
Facebook.
I've seen you there.
Left so many Vaishnavas for us to take
No.
shelter or
We're talking
associate.
pure
I
bhakti.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what your question is. But I remember Gurudev once saying that there's always Shuddha Vaishnavas on the planet. He said, and Gaur Govinda Maharaj once said, if there wasn't a Shuddha Vaishnava doing Shuddha Bhajan on the planet would explode.
Yeah.
So there's always Shuddha Vaishnavas here. And now they're not very visible, but that doesn't mean they're not here. And it's up to us to cry to Krishna and to our gurus to please direct us to that association. And then, if we're sincere, we'll get it. Gurudev said, after I leave, it's going to be hard.
Didn't he also say his disciples would take Sahajiya all around the world?
I don't remember, but he may have. Yes?
The only question I asked Gurudev was, how can I serve you? He said to me, be qualified, then you can serve.
Yeah.
Get qualified. Then the Vaishnavas will. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the talk today. Okay.
Bhagavaat Maharaja ki jai.
Shila Gurudev ki
Jai.
Gotta start playing the
Jai.
Oh yeah, we gotta do Pushpanjali for Srila Bhakti.
Someone want to go pick a few flowers?
Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki. Sri Gadadhar Pandit ki.
Hare Krishna.
I can get up, I just move everything out of the way.
Is it still on?
I don't know.
Is it, what color is it?
Red.
Red.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, so we'll just have it facing the Pushpanjali.
How are you? You're good? You sat so quietly and so attentively through the whole lecture. Thank you very much for paying attention.
I know, right? What is he talking about?
Ladies want to offer the arti there?
Oh, okay.
One at a time, maybe.
No, go ahead, Guruji. Lalita, why don't you get up and...
Yeah, just set it up.
Oh, okay.
You want to do it?
Yeah.
Touch it.
Or actually, these will go forward. These are a little bit more.
Looks like it's you, Maharaj.
Huh?
Looks like it's up to you.
And someone like,
Someone
Can you
assist
get that
Maharaj
one?
and light everything for you.
Sure.
Someone can sing. Oh,
Okay.
Shri Guru Charana Padma.
What?
Shri Guru Charana Padma.
Okay.
Where I put here?
Shri Guru Charana Padma Bhakati Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Padma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Savadana Mate
Krishna Bhakti Yashomati Nandana Brajavarnagara Gokula Ranjana Sana Yashomati Nandana Rajavarnagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yashomati Nandana Rajavarnagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Koti Paranadana Magana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kaliya Gamana Vidhana Kaliya Gamana Vidhana
Bhagavaat
Yeah.
Jai. 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 Hari Hari Bo. Jai.
time. And this is her last darshan right before you turn that line of